Welcome to Automate and Learn with Yogesh, where we will learn today about Amazon S3 access points. So, what are S3 access points? In Amazon S3, access points are a way to create multiple customized entry points to the same bucket, each with its own permission and network controls. So, what does it mean? Instead of managing one complex bucket policy, you can create separate access points for different users or applications. So, why it exists? Say, if you have suppose multiple teams, analytics, say for example analytics, application, machine learning team, so different teams, for managing its policies, different teams needs to be have different permissions, so this can be managed using S3 access points. If you have different permission needs requirements, or if you have virtual private cloud VPC only access requirements, so if these three and required requirement is there, so you can go with Amazon S3 access points. So a single bucket policy becomes messy and risky. So because of it, access points solve the problem by isolating access rules. So how it works, let's see. So each access point has its own access resource name, its own ARN name, its own policy, that is an access point policy similar to bucket policy, but it's managed at scale. Then optional virtual private cloud restriction, and it has its own DNS name like internet origin or VPC origin, right? So applications accessing S3 using, so we have this ARN endpoint. Here access point is used slash access point name. So this is the template or format you can see. So example use case, first is without access point, it only refers to one bucket single policies. So that makes things more complex. Instead of it, you can create huge policies with 50 plus rules with the same access points with same bucket. So with access points, multiple access point you can create, and multiple rules you can create with the same bucket. So by this, it makes the process simplified. Then we have multiple access points. These can be used in analytics AP. You can provide them read only rights. Say if you have another team, application team, you can provide them read write permissions. Then we have private, and then you can provide them only via virtual private cloud, that VPC permissions. So this is clean, secure, and scalable, because each team can be segregated with different sorts of permissions, which is required as per your uh, team's requirement. Then we have a simple example over here. Here, so suppose we have finance team, sales team, supply team, data science team. So using S3 policies, you can specify its object. Say finance data will be belong to finance object 1, object 2, and so on. Sales data will be belonging to sales slash object sales, and so on. Supply data, supply slash object 1, object 2, whatever the objects are present in the bucket, and so on. So by this, we can define the separate policies. Say policy grant read write access required to finance data, to sales data, for supply to supply data, and data science may be read access data to tagged in bucket. So by this, using access points, we have granted different sorts of read write or write permissions or read permissions wherever required for certain sorts of departments, say finance, sales, supply, etc. So here we have a simplest version of read only access via an access point. So this is the JSON template or the JSON script. Here we have specified SID as read only access. Then we are allowing principal as star, that is for all objects. Here resource is equal to your endpoint access point, your region ARN slash my access point slash object. So this way, as we discussed in the image, you can specify your access point and the objects inside your access point. If you select star, all the objects in the bucket bucket will be specified, and if you can separate it using comma, multiple objects, if you want to pinpoint which object needs to have separate permissions. Then we have some key features like per application permissions. That's what I say. Each app gets its own access point plus policies. Second, we have virtual private cloud restriction. If suppose you can restrict to a specific virtual private cloud, you can create a VPC endpoint to access the access point, gateway or interface endpoint, right? So the VPC endpoint policy must allow access to the target bucket as well as its access points. So this is the JSON string condition. Here we have specified AWS source VPC and our VPC serial number or VPC ID tag ID, right? Or maybe resource ID, VPC resource ID, you can consider this. So here we have restricted our access to a specific virtual private cloud. So where it is useful? It is useful for private data pipelines, say Airflow, Apache Airflow, in some ETL pipelines. So such applications, you can use this type of access policies. Then we have simplified security, like no need to edit bucket policy again and again. Instead of, you can create a bucket S3 access policies, and it makes the process simpler. It reduces the risk of misconfiguration. Then we have comparison table over here. On the left hand side we have features. On the top row we have access and point bucket policies, right? So granularity and access policies, we have it's very fine, and it point bucket policy, it scores. Complexity, it's low. For bucket point policy, it's high. VPC control, yes, we can do with access policies. Yes, we can do virtual private control. Here it's limited. Scaling, yes, we can scale the scale. And in point bucket policy, it's hard to manage. Some of the important points: access point don't replace buckets. It's a part of the buckets. Data is still stored in the same bucket, and they just provide controlled access paths, right? So some of the exam tips we can go with: if suppose the interviewer asks multiple applications need different permissions, simplify bucket policy or restrict access to VPC. Any of the three is mentioned, so your answer must be S3 access points. So that's all for today regarding S3 access points. So if you like my video, stay tuned and subscribe my channel. Thank you.